Today we're going to show you how to take in the center seam of a pair of jeans, the waistband, the loop, and going down the back so it fits your waist tighter. And so just to show you, we put it on my client and we pinned it. It's about 1 inch total. And so I'm going to show you what we did. The first thing we did was pin it, down her body, and then I took safety pins and put exactly where I had pinned it before. There was 1 set of pins, and now I have 2 sets of pins, and this is going to tell us where to sew. And the next thing I'm going to do is clip off the loop. It's the first thing we do once we get all of our pins in. The next thing we have to do is clip out the top stitching. I use these sharp little scissors. They work so good. Some people are good with seam rippers, but I just end up ripping more than just the seams. So anyway, we go ahead and clip out both these seams. Come down quite a ways. That way when we shift the seam to top stitch it, we won't have any little funky spots that, that are awkward. And so we'll take this one out, and then the other one we'll go from the inside. You can see that. Because both seams have to be removed. And remove them all the way up to the waistband. Clean up all the little clip stitches, get all the little threads out. It'll make it a little bit easier to maneuver. Clean it up. And we'll clip the waistband right in the middle of the 2 spots that we've pinned. We'll have to clip it here and then on the back side. And the next little order of business is to clip the waistband where it connects to the pants. Clip that back. And probably about 1 inch past where your pins are. So we have extra room to move around, and maneuver and sew. And this is just top stitched right here. Sometimes there's a seam right in here, so if you have a seam there, you need to remove that. So let's clip all that out. Top stitching or seam, whichever. And we'll do it on both sides. Now that the waistband is off, we can clip the rest of that top stitched seam, and I stay stitched that one. All of these are a little bit different. Some of them they have serging in those open seams. Sometimes it's folded under. All of them are very different. But anyway, let's get it all clipped off, and then we'll talk about how we need to make adjustments. This really isn't very hard. It's just you got to just be patient with it, like all the other projects I've talked about. You've just got to be patient. Pull all the stitches out, and then we'll go ahead and fold and make it look like something. In order to keep these top stitch seams from unraveling, what I do is I'll pull the little seam up. You could see the thread. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie this off. And I'll do this on both sides before I start top stitching. Now I'm going to turn this seam under where I have these pins. I'll fold it, make sure it's flat back here. These pins in. Make sure you keep it flat, because this darn denim is pretty hard to use. This is a lightweight denim. Pin it all the way down. These are mom jeans, I'm just saying. There will not be a waistband seam in this. Now I'm going to attach it to where these other pins are. Here, remove this pin. I want that to bump out. And we'll do this all the way up to the waistband. And I've developed this really tricky way to do the waistband that makes it so simple. Get these pins out of the way. So we know where we're going. Get it pinned down all the way. And then the next thing to do is to top stitch all of this down. I'm going to lower my needle right down into where this original seam is. And I didn't use a denim thread. It was too heavy and it was too dark. So I'm just using a regular gold thread. So I'm going to remove the pins as I go. And make sure you don't have this all buckled under. Make sure it's flat underneath so you don't catch that. We'll take care of that in a little bit. Kind of take your time. These are a little bit older jeans, and so they're kind of stretched out, so you have to kind of go slow so it doesn't pucker. That's real easy to do. I've been known to take a top stitching out here and there, or more than that too. So just be patient with it. Take your time. Make sure you come from the back end and come up towards the waistband. If there's any movement in the fabric, then all of it will shift forward as opposed to bunching up at the end. So, and there we go. As you can see in the process, this did move up some, which is not that big of a deal. But the fabric is old and there's a lot of stretch to it, so you just have to let the fabric do what it's supposed to do. It's much better for this to be not lined up than there to be puckers and things on the back side of where the top stitching is. So just FYI, just go with it and let the fabric tell you what to do. So in order to do the next set of top stitching, let's go ahead and turn the jeans over, and we have all this excess fabric, and it should actually be about 1 inch of extra fabric where these stitches are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip this within about 3/8 of an inch to the edge. That is the outside. This is the one we're going to turn under, because we're going to clip this, turn this under and pin it, and then top stitch it right here. But we want all of this fabric to be turned under. It'll fray, and if you launder it, it will fray and it'll all come apart. Didn't do this for nothing. So we'll start down here, and we're going to turn that under, and that's going to be under this other bit of fabric. Make sure it's secure. We'll go all the way up and pin it. Now, I know the pins are on the opposite side, but I am going to pull those out as I get closer to it. It looks like it's about 1/4 of an inch between the two sets of top stitching. So, and carefully go. I'm going to pull this pin out from under there before I go over it. Now, this thread isn't as thick as the original thread. It is the right color, but it's not as thick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to top stitch over my top stitching. So I'm going to do the underside of the waistband. These pants, aside from being old, have a lot of lycra in them, and that gives it the stretchability. It's like an elastic in it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of like maneuver it up in here to keep it from stretching. I don't want there to be any puckers, but I also don't want the waist to expand, and it will, because this fabric, like I said, has that lycra in it and it is old. It sounds like an old lady's skin, doesn't it? So here we go. Get the pins in there. And then the pins are right here. Also, you can see that where that was top stitched. I'm going to go ahead and stitch that down since all of this has a lot of movement to it. So we'll go ahead and top stitch it down, and we'll double top stitch it just like I did the back side. These straight pins are the ones that replace those safety pins I had in there. And these are places where we mark where we're going to pin this out. Pin this evenly inside like this. If there were two different, if there was a seam in between, you'll do the same thing, but you'll just have that little area with the seams. So let's take this and stretch this all the way over to where that pin was, and pin that down. I said there's a little bit of stretch and old in here. Try to get all the puckers out. Sometimes it's hard to do. Tuck that front piece in. Wrap that waist over the top and pin that. And I'm going to do the same back here. I'm going to start at the top of the waistband and work down, and then I'm going to come across here. So now I'm going to go ahead and top stitch this section. It is so thick. I went ahead and stay stitched the seams down in the front and in the back. I think I have photographs that will show you that. So I'm going to go ahead and I just kind of hand reeled that stitching in there because I was afraid I would break the thread or my needle. And so I'm going to do that a second time. I'm going to turn it around. And then the last spot that I'm going to do before I put on the loop is top stitch the top of the waistband. Because my thread, like before, isn't thick enough, I'm just going to flip it around and top stitch over my top stitch. And I'll be the first one to tell you, it's hard to get all of that even, but because we have this little loop that goes over here, nobody will know the difference. And so, anyway. And again, these are mom jeans. She won't be tucking this in, I'm telling you right now. There we go. And it's super duper layered. I also left all of that original stitching in. It's kind of like a loop stitch in there, and so it keeps it a little bit more authentic looking also. Let's do the bottom of it. This one will be a little bit easier. Give it a little bit of give. It's not completely tight. Line that up with that fold right there. You could use sandpaper or a file, but it kind of like roughs up the fabric so it doesn't look so kind of discombobulated. It looks a little bit more natural with all those worn spots. Just make sure you don't overdo it and mess up your stitches. So anyway, well, there we go. I think that's a done deal. Anyway, good luck. It's not easy.